Hey guys, welcome back to Jab Reads with episode 4, technically episode 5. Last week I talked about Dead Until Dark, which was the first in the SOOKIE STEAKHOUSE Vampire Southern Romance True Blood novels by Charlaine Harris. And I talked about how great the book was and how much I recommended it to you guys, as well as about the time that I met her. But this week, like I said in last week, I wanted to talk about the spoilery portion of this book. So here is the first spoiler video. If you guys didn't pay attention to my Short Story Madness video, then in this one I do want to tell you that this is Double Video Friday. This is something that I'm going to start doing every month, hopefully, and see how well it works. But Short Story Madness is the first in a series where I give more light to the short stories that I feel like are neglected and not that, acknowledged about. Because I feel like short stories are very awesome and they need to be talked about more. So I want to start recommending them and shedding more light on short stories with a monthly video called Short Story Madness. That'll be that series. And then for this series I have the spoiler talk, where I actually take the book of a previous week's topic and I get down to the nitty-gritty portions of it and I tell you guys what I did and didn't like about it. So for those of you that haven't read Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris, or if you haven't seen True Blood, then I recommend you guys do not watch the rest of this video because spoilers are coming your way right about now. So the first thing I want to talk about is the wonderful cover art. I totally forgot to talk about it in last week's video, but the beautiful, beautiful cover art, depending on which version you guys like, was, so this one here in particular, the jacket art was illustrated by the wonderful Lisa Decimini. I always forget how to say her last name, so I wanted to make sure that I read it correctly. But she is just a wonderful artist. If you guys know who I'm talking about, good. But if not, go ahead and look her up online. You guys can actually order the prints of these book covers without the text on them. So you would just get the cover. Now, I don't know if you would get the glitter infused with the print, but you can order like a huge canvas of just like one of her prints. And she does illustrations for children's books and for other novels, but the ones that I really enjoy most are her SOOKIE STEAKHOUSE covers because they are all beautiful and they all have this really cool rendition of like glitter being infused underneath the cover, and it just kind of gives more insight to the world and more of a flair. I don't know, I just really, really enjoy it. But for those of you that bought the TV tie-in editions where each book you got the cover art of the season on the book, that's great, that's fine, but they're not as cool as these here. So I do want to talk about Lisa Decimini. I recommend her a lot. I do like her work. Lisa, if you're watching, I love your work. And I would love one day if I ever get published for you to design my work. But what I also want to talk about next is the opening scene for Dead Until Dark. Now, if you've watched True Blood, then you already know how it works out. And like I said in the last week video, Season 1 is pretty much book 1. You can read the book and say, okay, literally every episode to the T was every chapter to the T. And of course, there's the difference between first person and third person, where they rotate a few scenes around to show you the different interactions of the different characters, opposed to the book where you're literally always with SOOKIE. So there are some differences there, but for what it's worth, I would say it's about 75% spot on, if not 95%. But what hooked me right away in the book, sort of by not just one, but the first 3 in the series, was this opening paragraph. I'd been waiting for the vampire for years when he walked into the bar. Ever since vampires came out of the coffin, as they laughingly put it, 2 years ago, I'd hoped one would come to Bon Temps. We had all the other minorities in our little town. Why not the newest, the legally recognized undead? But rural northern Louisiana wasn't too tempting to vampires, apparently. On the other hand, New Orleans was a new center for them. The whole Anne Rice thing, right? What I love about Charlaine Harris was she kind of pokes fun, at the genre while being true to her own genre. A lot of people didn't enjoy the whole crying tears of blood thing from the show, because apparently that's something that Anne Rice does with her Vampire Lestat series, or Chronicles. But for what it's worth, Charlaine Harris wrote a wonderful 13-book series, and she has her own SOOKIE STEAKHOUSE short stories, which one of them got bound up with the first 5 called The Touch of Dead. The rest appear in the separate anthologies. I hope she ends up releasing another bind-up, because that would be great, but who knows. So with Dead Until Dark, what I really liked about this book was it was one of the first mystery books that kind of infused the supernatural lore just so perfectly, and it was so believable to me, and it was so enthralling. I remember getting to chapter 5 within a night, and I was just so glued to the pages. I actually had to tell myself, Justin, you have school in the morning, go to sleep. But what I liked about it was SOOKIE STEAKHOUSE was a strong character. Like I said again in last week's video, she kind of stays true to herself. She doesn't grow from the situation, she isn't so traumatized she's a completely different person. She learns from it, she prospers, but she stays true to herself. She obviously does change a little bit over the years. She learns not to trust certain people. She learns to cut ties like here and there. But for what it's worth, Sookie Stackhouse from book 1 is Sookie Stackhouse by the end of the series. And a lot of people didn't enjoy that. There was a scene, I want to say, in book 5, which I don't want to spoil to you guys, even though this is a spoiler talk, but a scene in book 5 that definitely comes back together in books 12 and 13 that a lot of people were so upset about, that the author got death threats, which is just crazy to me because A, it's just a book, but B, it's amazing to me to see how so vividly these characters become a part of your life, that people will literally say outrageous things such as a death threat because, you know, their character didn't do this, or their character didn't end up with this person, or their character didn't die, or, you know, it's crazy to me. I am that faithful, but I don't think I would ever do a death threat. But for what it's worth, you guys are crazy awesome fans. But I don't know. This is one series that I will always take with me. I don't think I will ever sell. So on top of the great book cover, I do want to start talking about the actual book itself. So with chapter 1, we are introduced to the world of Bonton, Louisiana, where Sookie Stackhouse herself lives. What's great is she's a barmaid at the wonderful Merlotte's Bar and Grill, which is owned by her boss, Sam Merlotte. And she is the barmaid there, and she interacts with each and every person. But what sucks is she's telepathic, so she can hear each and everyone's thoughts. And so she can hear when everyone thinks about her, or whenever anyone thinks about anyone else, and she can hear all their sexualized thoughts when she's just trying to get them a Diet Coke. So, on top of all this, she lives in a world where 2 years ago, vampires have, as they laughingly put it, come out of the coffin, and they have lived amazingly without much disruption alongside the human race. So, not only is Sookie excited about that, to be living in a world where vampires do in fact exist, but she's been waiting for this vampire to enter the bar her entire life, or at least her entire career at Merlotte's. Now, if you've seen the show, you do understand already what happens, and season 1 is literally 75 to 95% to the T, book 1, and I just love Alan Ball for transferring so beautifully book 1. But for what it's worth, they did a wonderful, wonderful job. I do recommend this book. But as well as with chapter 1, we have all these story arcs already happening. We have the fact that the vampires exist. We have Sookie wanting to meet a vampire, and of course she does meet her vampire. She's working down at Merlotte's. We kind of get this weird sense that, you know, her boss may or may not have a crush on her, and he's wanting her to, you know, like, read his thoughts, and she's like, that's kind of weird. I don't want to read your thoughts. You're my boss. And so all this opens up, and of course, on top of all of that, her not-so-favorite customers, Denise and Mac Rattray, enter her section, and she has to wait on them. Denise and Mac Rattray are the slum life, trashy people to a T. They are drug addicts. They don't care how they look. They don't care what they say, what they think. And of course, they don't care, you know, about Sookie that much either. And she hates the fact that she can always hear their thoughts so, like, blatantly and boldly. And she's just always, not afraid, but she's always worried that she'll get them in her section. And of course, it's her turn. And of course, when they sit down in her section, they sit right next to the vampire. And immediately all worlds collide. So she's excited and enthralled when Bill Compton, the first vampire to enter Merlotte's, is in her section. And she just throws herself at him. She's like, I'm Sookie Stackhouse, what can I get you? And he wants to order True Blood. Now, True Blood, of course, is the title of the show, but it is also the drink that the Japanese people have created. It's a synthetic blood for the vampires to live on. That way the humans can understand that, like, even though vampires are scary and they are a lot stronger than us, it's okay, because they don't need our blood to live off of anymore. They can use True Blood. They can use the #1 selling synthetic blood to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So when he asks for one, Sookie has to unfortunately tell him no, but she's just smiling so brightly. She's like, I'm sorry, they went bad since we haven't, you know, like, had a vampire in the bar at all, and, you know, but can I get you a red wine? And so he gets a glass of red wine, and they start talking, but then Denise and Mac Rattray intercede with the conversation, and all of a sudden, everything goes downhill from there. So in the first chapter, we meet a slew of characters, but then we also see that Sookie, as well as being true to herself, like I've talked about before, she is an ambitious little girl. She decides to save the vampire from these two slums, Denise and Mac Rattray, because on top of them being slummy and trashy, they are blood drainers. Now, in this world, what's really cool to see is vampire blood, also known as V, is a drug that can enhance your libido as well as get you into this eye-opening high. And like I've also talked about, referencing the show again, if you've seen the show, you've seen that Sookie's brother Jason has fallen victim to that with his girlfriend Amy Burley. So within the first chapter, we have Sookie meeting a vampire, you know, running into the rat race. She saves the vampire from the rat race. She goes home to tell her grandma, Adele Stackhouse, whom is a wonderful character. If you've seen the show or if you've read the book, you just instantly fall in love with her southern hospitality. But she talks to her grandmother and she shows her like, hey, I have met a vampire. That was how my night went. And they share this weird little scene where they're both excited about the fact that they met a vampire without understanding that vampires are sometimes really evil. They don't care. They look at you and they're just like, you are human meat. You are something that I live off of. I don't want to drink true blood. And instead, you know, her grandma's like, do you think he would speak for us at the Descendants of the Glorious Dead conference that we'll be having soon? And Sookie's like, I don't know, but if he comes back into the bar, I'll ask. So in the first chapter, you have all sorts of adventure, and then Denise and Mac Ray decide to come back and exact their revenge on her disruption of the blood draining, which of course they did, and she saved Bill Compton from. And by doing so, they beat the living shit out of her, and Bill ends up saving her life. And so they kind of repay their debt together. Well, I guess he repays his debt to her, but now she's kind of for him. And as a thank you for saving her life, she's like, is there anything I can do for you? And he's like, you know what? I just moved here. I would love to have an electrician come out to my house, but of course I can't call him during the day, so I need someone to call them during the day for me and make sure that it's okay for them to come out during the night. So Sookie's like, sure, I'll do that for you. Like, you saved my life, I saved yours, why not? And then she tries to get into kind of the Descendants of the Glorious Dead conference, and she sets up this meeting with her grandmother. And while living in this world where she's trying her best to be a part of this vampire's life, a slew of dead girls keep popping up all around town, one of them being her coworker. And while Sookie's sitting here watching this happen all around her, her brother Jason Stackhouse, who is a womanizer and a guy who can get any and every girl to fall for him, he of course falls victim to that and becomes the #1 suspect in all these murder charges. The first one being Maudette Pickens. And so Sookie decides to use her telepathic ability to try to save her brother and try to find the real killer while trying to, you know, be a part of this vampire's life, while trying to make sure she doesn't end up being vampire dinner, while trying to make sure that, you know, everything is just going to work out fine. And of course, everything doesn't work out fine. Of course, like I said before, we wouldn't have a book if there was. So I don't want to spoil the entire book for you. I just wanted to do enough to jumpstart you guys into the series. So hopefully that was enough to get you guys to pick up your nearest copy of Dead Until Dark. It is wonderful. It's great. Get your hands on it in any way, shape, or form. But if you guys actually want to do more spoiler talk below, go ahead and let me know. I will do some more interactions. I will actually go ahead and do any and every single spoiler question that you guys can think of down below. My thoughts on chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I won't go into book 2, so if you guys have any spoiler questions about books 2, 3, all the way to 13, I won't talk about those because those are going to be saved for later dates. I do plan on coming back to do more spoiler talks about books 2 through 13, as well as reviews separately, so stay tuned for those. But if you have any Dead Until Dark or Season 1 True Blood spoilers that you want to talk about, let me know below. And if you guys haven't seen the Short Story Madness video, which was posted earlier, go ahead and watch that one as well. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you guys have any thoughts or if you guys have any recommendations on your own short stories, let me know in the comments below on that video because I will also try to get those into the next Short Story Madness episode. But for what it's worth, thank you guys for tuning in. Go ahead and comment, like, and subscribe. That way I can make more videos for you guys. And stay tuned for next week's video. Remember to read, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.